Okay, so I think, executive dysfunction, some I'm assuming you guys have all heard of it, and whoever's listening to this recording, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but to go back over it, it's basically that like chip that makes it so that you start and complete things. That thing, that chip is like either banged up or missing or something when it comes to these issues, where on the surface level it might look like you're lazy, or at least is what I told myself in the past. You're lazy, or you're not being thoughtful, or you are, you're being spoiled, or you're putting things off because you just want to like have a good time. Like that's all the stuff I felt really, I don't know if you guys can relate, felt really self-conscious about, like, oh, I hope people don't think that about me. Like I like to be on top of things, and it felt like there was just something always kind of holding me back from being on top of things and actually facilitating them and then completing them. So, and we break it down, and executive dysfunction, of course, it's a hallmark thing for ADHD. It's also very, very common for anybody who is on the spectrum as well. It has a lot to do with demand avoidance. If you remember, I mentioned that, I think it was the last Zoom. I was talking about demand avoidance. It could happen if you have anxiety, if you have OCD, if you have, if you have depression, things like that. All of that really, really affects your executive functioning. And it can be something that seems so obvious, like, well, just set an alarm, just write a reminder. Just, like put this by the door before you leave. Like we've all tried them, and we all like it's as if that, like, if only that worked, and sometimes it might, but for some other things, it even frustrates us, to be like, it seems so simple. Why don't I just do it? I don't know if you guys have experienced that. Put a one in the chat, or if you're on camera, nod your head. But if you relate to this, where it's like you want to do the thing, you want to be on top of the thing, you want to just not have any issues getting started with the thing, but for some reason you don't, or for many reasons you don't. So that's what we're going to tackle today. And I think something else I commonly hear is, if there are people who push it off and push it off and push it off, and I have been there myself, where I say I work better in crunch time. I operate better when it's crunch time. And the reason for that is because there is nothing else that you can focus on. It is now like the part of your brain that makes it hard to get started is now satisfied with the importance of it. Even if logically it's important. You've known it's important from the start, only until some serious consequences or other people are expecting it or something. And you have like this much time left from the huge block you once had. That's when it's like, oh, I can really focus. So it's executive dysfunction. Some of the tools I'm going to give you today might not entirely fit your situation, but these are some that I find that are helpful. Okay. Um, let's get into it. So first thing is the baby steps. And I know you guys are like, really? She got us here on the computer at night to tell us this, but it's not just the baby steps that you have with, let's say, with me or with your coach in terms of your health or your hormones. Baby stepping it is an overall mindset. It's a philosophy. Everything needs to get broken down into baby steps, because it just ends up that we get stuck putting the cart before the horse a lot of times. Or we get stuck thinking of a million different things you can do instead that are more important, or different ways you can do it. And before you know it, you have analysis paralysis, where you got all these thoughts and you got zero action. So I think it's important to when you find yourself in the throes of like have you guys seen that video on Instagram or on TikTok where it's a cap cut, and it's, I think, yeah, it's an old lady from like older lady from one of the baking competition shows, and she's just like kind of like going back and forth in her little station, not knowing what the hell to do. To of when you find yourself in that, you want to stop, you want to think about it, and you want to say, what's one absolutely ridiculous baby step? And like it might do nothing for you. It might be that you still don't want to do that baby step. It might be that you do that one thing and then you're back at square one again and it doesn't really kick momentum in for you. Or you might surprise yourself and find that if you do something like ridiculously dumb, like ridiculously easy, not dumb, ridiculously easy. I'm trying to think of an example I can give you. Um, okay, I'm trying to clear out my basement because I want to finish my basement. I want to put up paneling and stuff like that. So we got a lot of crap down there and we got to get rid of it. And it's been stuff that I've been pushing off. I've been putting off listing it because like it's so easy. It takes 2 minutes to list something, but when you have a ton, you have a bunch of stuff, it's like all the steps involved. You take a picture, you have to write about it, you have to, so I keep putting it off. So the other day, we were downstairs and we were just looking at it and Nick actually reminded me that I was doing this and I found these like I feel like maybe they're cringy now, but they're like these older Ray Dunn platters that I've been saying for like 5 years that I'm gonna sell. So I was like, I took them out and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it this week. And Nick is like, do you have somewhere to go right now? And I was like, no. And he was like, why don't you just put it on Facebook right now? And I was like, that still seems like a lot. So what I did instead was I took it out, I put them down on something, and like that was all that I did. And then seeing them there, I'm like, okay, I'll take a picture. And at least when I go upstairs, I'll put the listing up because I'll have the pictures. And then once I took the pictures, I'm like, let me just take it on the Facebook app. I don't even need to open my camera. I'll just take the pictures right on the listing. And then I'm like, but I might as well just fill out the title. And then before you know it, the listing was posted. So sometimes it happens like that. I'm not saying that that's going to be every time, but sometimes that's all it takes is just breaking it down to a step. Something that could help with this, if you find yourself not knowing what baby steps to break it into, one of my favorite things, I know I've asked this in the past, you can't hear him screaming, right? That's why I'm progressively getting louder, by the way. I'm sorry. So, but oh my God, what was I saying right before that? Someone remind me right before I said that I'm screaming. Do you remember what I was jabbering on about just now? Because it's off my notes.
You were talking about how
Facebook,
it
I'm
was like,
selling the thing, right?
yes, yes, you
Okay.
did the title, and then before you knew it, you had the listing up.
Okay. So sometimes I remember I was saying sometimes it works like that, sometimes it doesn't. Oh well, it will come back to me. I had like a different example to give you guys, but it will come back. There's a reason I don't remember it, I guess. So, um, that's the first thing is breaking it down. Oh, okay. It's back, guys. Okay. Chat GPT. If you're trying to figure out what your baby step would even be, if you feel like you have a ton of stuff or there's lots of steps or you feel bottlenecked that you don't know, you're like, well, I can't do this until I do this, and I can't do that until I do that, and you find yourself getting frazzled, you can text me, just text me an emoji and then tell me you need help figuring this out. Okay. Or you can go on ChatGPT and you can just say, I need help figuring out what extremely small, easy first step will help me get this task done. You tell it what kind of task you have. It might not give you the right answer, like the first thing it populates, you might have to continue giving it a little bit more information to get the right answer. But if you need something to kind of help you get out of your own head and just map it out for you, I chatgpt.com. You don't even have to log in. Like you can just go and do this. So, um, that was, yeah. When you feel like you need help, you want to break it down, try that first, break it down into tangible steps. If that doesn't work, then something else you can do is try to plan for external accountability, like body doubling. So we'll get into this more. Like I said, we're gonna body double. We're gonna do that here together. But I encourage you guys too, especially those of you on here, body double, pick a partner. Find a partner here, whoever you want to talk to in the WhatsApp chat, on the Facebook group. I can start a thread on the Facebook page if you'd like. That would be easier. But find someone in CCA to kind of work out a body doubling situation where you guys can just help each other out. And I'll show you what that looks like later. So we got break it down into baby steps. We got external accountability like body doubling, which I will explain. We have work in modes. I did a whole Zoom on this one. I would go back and watch that one too if you have some time. This is one of my biggest suggestions. Working in modes where it's hard to transition when you have executive dysfunction. If the issue is starting and facilitating and continuing, whatever, you want to think about it as, if you are already kind of doing something, the odds of success with getting something that's similar done are a lot higher if you kind of lop it on while you're already doing that other kind of similar thing. So I was talking to a client yesterday. I'm totally going to use the example if you're watching. But I was talking to a client yesterday, and I was like, what feels hard about baking or pre-making like a baked good on the weekdays? And that makes sense. It sounds like a nightmare to have to clean up and do everything, right? But I was kind of explaining it where if it might seem like you have more time on the weekends to do this, but that almost creates this issue where it's like you have to distinguish what your day looks like on a weekend. You have no structure, right? You're home. Whereas like you can hang out, you can get this errand done, you can relax, you can do anything. So it's a lot harder to carve out when you're just going to get up and go do something and go bake something on the weekend when you have all this free time, as compared to do it where you put it in the oven or you mix it or whatever when you're cooking dinner during the week. But have your ingredients all like in sandwich baggies or bowls or whatever. So this way you don't have to do that too on a weeknight. Like that's something maybe, you can do one night. Then the next night you mix it and throw it in the oven while dinner's cooking. It sounds kind of crazy. Like no one really does that, right? Like you cook dinner and then you move on. But if you're already in the kitchen and you're already making a mess because you're already cooking, if you add a couple more dishes to that, or you put something in the oven, let's say, that's going to be easier, even if it on the surface it seems like more like quote unquote work at that time. That will be easier than having to just pick a time in the middle of the day where I call it the Wild West, right? It's like not morning or night, the time in between, especially on the days you're off. It's like the Wild West. Who the hell knows what's going on? So, um, that would be an example of work in modes. You're already in the kitchen. What else can you get done while you're in there rather than having to figure out a whole separate time to do it? I'm trying to think of another mode to do. So I use this with laundry, right? So let's say, I mean, this is aside from the fact that we all, I think, collectively can agree that we hate doing laundry, right? But like, let's say you're finally putting the laundry away. Put it away in outfit format. I know that sounds crazy, but put together pants and shirt on one hanger. Like instead of having separate things for everything, because you're already there. So you're working in the mode where you're kind of establishing, like, here's my outfits that I'm picking out versus having to do them in separate modes. Um, this is a good one. I'll say, you go try to take your walk or something after work before dinner, before you're home for the night. That's going to be a lot easier. I mean, I think that a lot of people feel like a lot of people lop on working out to work already. But the reason for that is because like once you're home, that's home mode. It's hard to switch into continuing to do duties and things you had planned to do when now kind of your body feels like this is the part of the night where we're unwinding, where we don't have things requested of ourselves. It gets harder to do once you're home. Even if now with the sun being out later, it doesn't feel like before the sun was setting at 4 o'clock. It's easy to feel like I'm in for the night. You might feel guilty that you're not getting more done, but it's home time now. You're in that mode. It's going to be hard to break out. So just start thinking of like more bang for my buck, like if I like a two birds, one stone kind of situation with whatever you're doing, you might find that you get more done that way. And because, sorry to ramble, and because if you do it as part of something else you're doing, You avoid the beginning of something. You avoid the, okay, now I have to start doing this. And that can be daunting rather than just continuing to do what you're already doing. Okay. So then that kind of goes in with the next tool, which is attach a routine to a routine. You know how I was saying how the middle of the day and the weekend is kind of the Wild West? I try to attach as much as I can to getting into bed or getting out of bed. Like if there's anything I can do in terms of like my any lymphatic drainage, my medicines, I time them out. I have them next to my bed. Like I have such a hard time remembering medications. If I have to get up out of bed to go get my meds, like in my kitchen or something, I'm gonna forget about it entirely. Entirely. It has to be like right next to my bed, ready to go. If you're doing anything like morning or nighttime routine in terms of, again, this is going to seem like a no-brainer, but like packing for the next day, for doing anything like that, like I am not going to try and get that done before it's either right before bed or as soon as I wake up or even just right after getting out of bed. It has those two windows. That's all. um, at least without as much struggle. Obviously, as adults, we've all had to figure out things we have to do in between bedtimes. But if there's anything optional to do, instead of beating yourself up that you haven't just remembered to do it randomly at 6 p.m. every night, try to attach it to a nighttime or a morning routine where it's kind of anchored with something. How this might work during the day, if you have an anchor point, try to remember to do that, right? So, example, eating. If you have executive dysfunction issues and you don't have strong hunger cues, or you take medication for ADHD or any kind of meds, GLP-1s, anything that restricts appetite, especially, it's not going to be something that you're going to necessarily think to do because you don't have that drive. So time's going to pass and you're going to be like, oh shit, I haven't eaten. So what I'll try to do with people that have a hard time sticking to a time of day to do something, I'll say find a anchor point in your day that usually happens around the same time, give or take. You know, or try to figure out like for clients of mine who work in jobs that they see clients, I'll say, what if every 3 clients you see, you eat something? What if every time I've had a nurse and she does reports at some, the time kind of varies, but it's generally around some point in the early afternoon. So I'll say, well, when you sit to do reports, that's when report time is when I eat. I've even had clients where they're like, I don't even remember to pee until I'm ready to like friggin' burst. Like, I don't understand why I don't just get up and go to the bathroom. Executive dysfunction. So I'll have clients, I'll say, well, at this point in your workday each day, check in with yourself. Do you have to use the bathroom? Do you need a drink? Do you need to eat something? And at least it reminds you because it's attached to a repeat event, if there is one in your day, that you can attach it to. Try not to think of it as like attaching it to a time, but rather attach a routine to a routine. And then the last one here before we get into body doubling is add enjoyment to having to get this task done. I know it's another one that I feel like sounds so simple, but I don't know about you guys. I forget to do that all the time. Like obviously, I know it's like Betty put some music on, you get I wrote here music instead of sitting like in a chair, bounce on a yoga ball as you're at your desk so that you have some kind of like movement and it's like, engaging in some way. They have what are like the fidget things. There's so many different fidget things out there, but have something that you're engaging at the same time that you're trying to get started on something. Something sensory in a pleasant way. It does make a difference, but like I said, I forget that one all the time. I pay for Spotify Premium and I just like don't use it nearly enough. But anyway, any questions or takeaways, comments, anything you feel like sharing, which I love, on breaking it down into baby steps, working in modes, attaching a routine to a routine, or adding enjoyment. Anything anyone wants to share. Or anyway, and which one do you guys feel like you'd be excited to potentially enact? You can tell me in the chat or unmute. I need to play music at work. Yeah, isn't it something? It's like it seems so simple, but then you're like, that would help. Like I would like that. What else? What's one someone's excited to utilize? Different ways to break it down into baby steps, working in modes, routine to a routine. Keep forgetting I have this banana water and getting excited again when I remember. So good. Routine to a routine. Yeah, and then it becomes kind of fun too, because when you attach a routine to a routine, it's like you make a little, not like scavenger hunt, but like a little map for yourself, Like when this happens, you do this, and it kind of just feels like a system, which I don't know, I like soothes my brain to have a system. And then it pisses me off when I have a hard time maintaining it, but such is life. So, um, touching food to other things has been helpful for me. We talked about whenever I go to leave, I need to eat something. Yes, like kind of like when your phone, when you set it to like send me a reminder when I leave this location, it's kind of the same thing where it's like take a bite of something before you leave. And then I need to eat something and keep trail mix and jerky in the car. So if I don't remember till I'm out the door, I'm still okay. Yeah. That's still, it's like you're still attaching it to that thing. Like when I leave the house, I do this. Awesome. I did that with cooking. Great job, Chastity. I need to do it all. Yeah, well, we'll start with baby step. We'll start with one at a time. And today we're gonna do body doubling. So, okay, let me stop this recording and then we'll get to work.